Now, the Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, has claimed that a soft coup has been launched against Jeremy Corbyn by elements in the Labour Party. In an article he wrote for the Labour briefing website before the Copeland by-election, but only published online last night. Mr McDonnell says the plotters are distorting the media coverage and using an exceptionally well-resourced dark arts operation to destroy Jeremy Corbyn and all that he stands for. His comments come after a weekend of public argument at the top of Labour over how to respond to the by-election defeat in Copeland. Deputy Leader Tom Watson told the Scottish Labour Party conference now is not the time for a leadership election. That issue was settled last year. But he added that those at the top of the Labour Party need to have a long, hard look at ourselves at what's not working. The former acting Labour leader, Harriet Harman, told last night's Westminster Hour that the thing about being leader is the buck stops with you. Shadow Attorney General Shami Chakrabarti blamed the media, saying, "I think sometimes we haven't had the fairest or most balanced treatment in the media." Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has asked for more time to develop his policies, telling the Guardian newspaper that policy making is longer and slightly more cumbersome than calling in a few experts into my office to tell me what the policies should be. And speaking at Scottish Labour's spring conference in Perth yesterday, Mr Corbyn said it's not the time to throw in the towel.
We haven't done enough yet to rebuild trust with the people who've been ripped off and sold out for decades and don't always feel that Labour represents them. But now is not the time to retreat, to run away or to give up.
Jeremy Corbyn there. Well, we've been joined by the Shadow International Trade Secretary, Barry Gardiner. Welcome to the Daily
Morning.
Politics. Is there a soft coup underway against Jeremy Corbyn, as John McDonnell alleges?
No, not as far as I'm aware, Joe.
So why has he said it?
I think this was frustration. You will recall that there were the intervention by, the Labour grandees just before the by-elections. I think
You're talking about Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson.
John obviously got on the late-night typewriter, as it used to be, and out of frustration penned this. It came out at that stage. I think everybody in the Parliamentary Labour Party that I know, from Liz right the way through to Jeremy, is saying, look, let's get together, let's show unity, but more important, let's go out and talk to the public.
Right.
Let's listen to them and talk to them.
But you say he didn't really mean it, and that might have been credible if he'd written a tweet in frustration, as you say. He has penned a fairly lengthy and extremely detailed article, which he would have had to have thought long and hard about. So I ask you again, why does he say there is a soft coup underway against Jeremy Corbyn?
Look, I think he was very frustrated. I think he has retracted it since then. He said this was something that was born out of frustration, that it was because it was
it's not true. It's not true that he believes there's a soft coup. He isn't saying that it's being perpetrated by an alliance between elements in the Labour Party and the Murdoch media empire, both intent on destroying Jeremy Corbyn and all that he stands for. He retracts that, does he?
Well, look, I haven't had the distinct pleasure of reading Labour briefing. I'm not a normal reader of it, and I haven't read the article. But I think this was written for a section within the Labour Party, and clearly it was written out of frustration that John felt. He has retracted it. He said, look, it was wrong to put that out, and he wants now to focus on what I think all of us in the PLP ought to be focusing on, and that is uniting the Parliamentary Labour Party and listening to the country so we can better do our job of opposing the government.
Do you think it was responsible of John McDonnell to pen this article when he did and talk about elements in the Labour Party? Coup perpetrators are this time round pursuing a covert strategy.
I mean, this is the first I've heard of it, and I've no idea what he's talking about. Nobody should be fighting phantoms. Yeah. I think that there is a desperate yearning in the country for a strong and effective opposition.
Absolutely.
People are crying out for a Labour Party that they can trust on the economy and on security, who has got a clear plan and alternative on jobs, wages and public services.
And are Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell providing that?
That's what they need to do now. We all know the difficult situation we're in. We need a clear strategy to change where we are going forward, because people do want to see a Labour Party that they can trust, who shares their values and who they believe can set out a positive and patriotic vision for Britain's future at home and abroad.
How helpful is it then to have these words printed by the Shadow Chancellor post the Copeland and Stoke by-election, Copeland which Labour lost after 80 years, where he says the coup is not being waged up front in public but strictly behind the scenes? Having learned the lesson of the last coup attempt that a direct attack on Jeremy and his policies will provoke a backlash from many party members, as I say, they are pursuing a covert strategy. How helpful is that?
Well, John obviously doesn't think it's helpful because he's retracted it.
Right. Is it responsible, though, as Shadow Chancellor, to make this sort of accusations against people within his own party?
Well, what I really want to see our Shadow Chancellor doing with the budget coming up next week is showing out our alternative, how we're going to spread jobs and growth to every part of the country, how we're going to make sure the half of households who face a decade of stagnating wages are going to be able to get on in life, how we're going to transform our NHS and fight the Tory cuts to school funding. That's what John, the Shadow economy team and every member of the PLP should be laser focused on over the coming days.
So you're not part of a soft coup?
Oh, God, no.
Do you know anyone who is?
No.
Right. Is he making this up?
I don't know.
Right. I mean, is he deluded to have made these accusations in such detail?
You're trying to tempt me into saying something I'm not going to say, Joe. He's retracted it. Good. Let's focus on what matters to the public. We've got to stop talking to ourselves and meet people's desperate desire for a credible and radical.
But who was he talking about? What effect do you think this will have on the Parliamentary Labour Party when he talks about elements within Labour? I mean, was he talking about Clive Lewis, who has had to deny that there were websites put up talking about his leadership bid very shortly after he joined the Shadow Cabinet?
No, I don't think so. I think he's talking about people who are no longer part of the Parliamentary Labour Party. I think he was frustrated that the Labour grandees from yesteryear had come out publicly before the by-election in a way which actually not only John but actually many members of the PLP thought was unhelpful to have done that immediately before Stoke and Copeland. And I think what you've got to understand is that John McDonnell is somebody who has history with those people, and he probably conceived of it and perceived of it as an aggressive act to which he wanted to respond.
All right, well,
I think it was a mistake.
Let's talk about...
More importantly, he now thinks it's a mistake.
Should he come out and say something at the PLP tonight?
Well, look, he's already publicly said that he retracts it. Okay. He's already publicly said that. I think Liz is absolutely right here. We as a Parliamentary Labour Party need to focus not on ourselves anymore. We're fed up of talking about ourselves. We want to focus on the things that matter to the public.
Well, let's talk about those, because is Copeland a freak result as far as you're concerned? Many of the Labour leadership team seem to imply that. Or has the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn become more repugnant to the voters than a Tory government closing a local maternity unit and urgent care centre, as the head of Progress said?
I don't think it's a freak. I think in terms of result, I hope it's a freak result, but I don't think it's in any way something that is simply just happened by chance. This is a long-term process of those seats, that part of England, where we've seen more automation of jobs, more insecurity in jobs, more zero-hour contract
But this
jobs.
is a Labour heartland, Barry Gardner, as you know.
No, but that's the point.
And is this a failure of the party just not taking responsibility for its own failures? I mean, there have been 7 years of Conservative and coalition government and austerity measures throughout. And yet, how do you explain that Labour is still trailing 14 to 18 points in the polls?
Well, look, you quite rightly say this is 7 years of a Conservative administration. The Conservative administration has seen those wages for those people stagnate, and they are angry. But in areas like Copeland, in areas in the north, Labour is often seen as the party of administration, the party of government, because it has been in local government for so long, because they've had a Labour MP for so long. Many seats like that are associating the pain that they are feeling, the insecurity that they're feeling, with
They're blaming
party.
Labour and not the government.
Yeah, indeed.
Right.
And I think what we need to be doing is we need to be coming up with, not just saying it's all the government's fault, we need to be coming up with the answers that they believe are credible.
But clearly they don't think you have come up with the answers so far, otherwise they'd be voting for you. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn says he needs more time to develop policies. Is he developing the right sort of policies? Are they going the right direction, in your mind?
Sometimes I think we, in the Labour Party, love lots of policy detail. Don't get me wrong, unless you've got something clear, simple and credible, people aren't going to back you. But I think it's more about whether people believe we stand for them, whether we share their values about work, responsibility, about fairness, about paying in before you get out, about decent support, great schools, and how we're going to run the economy in a way that is fair, that makes sure everybody sees the benefits of growth.
And at the moment, Labour's not doing that.
And from my conversations with people, they don't believe that we are strong and effective opposition, and they're not convinced that they can trust us on the economy and on security.
So do you think Jeremy Corbyn should be given more time to do that? I mean, do you think it will then come to a state of play where people will trust Labour on those issues?
Well, I think he will be given more time, and the responsibility on all of us is to, you know, what's happening at the moment isn't working. We are not doing anywhere near it well enough in the polls, and the by-election results were catastrophic. Something has to change, and I think that is showing people what is Labour for, how will we back people's aspirations for themselves and their families and deliver great jobs and decent public services. Unless they trust us on that, unless they believe we are a proud and patriotic party that stands up for Britain at home and abroad, they won't support us, and that is what I think needs to change.
Do you agree with Harriet Harman, who said the buck stops with Jeremy Corbyn?
I think the buck stops with all of us who are in leadership positions in the Parliamentary Labour Party. No MP, no Labour MP should think, oh, well, it's the leadership or it's the shadow cabinet. We are, all of us, the leaders of the Labour movement. In particular, we are the leaders in our own constituencies and in our own areas. We have to show the leadership, and unless we all do that, I don't think there's any point in blaming one or two individuals at the top. It's our responsibility. You know, unity is strength is a mantra which has to cut both ways.
All right, Barry Gardiner, thank you.